Good morning from America's newest news leader, Televis. It's March 18th. Let's get right to our show, please.
Thank you very much.
ALCU, UCLA. Hello.
Chancellor Merkel, it is a great honor to welcome you to the People's House, the White House. Our two nations
Good
share
morning.
much in common, including our desire for security, prosperity, and peace. We just concluded a productive
Check out other videos
meeting
of Live from the
with
Pharmacy.
German and American companies to discuss workforce development and vocational training. Very important words. Germany has done an incredible job training the employees and future employees and employing its manufacturing and industrial workforce. It's crucial that we provide our American workers with a really great employment outlook. And that includes making sure that we harness the full potential of women in our economy. My administration is in the process of rebuilding the American industrial base. A stronger America is in the interest, believe me, of the world as a whole. I reiterated to Chancellor Merkel my strong support for NATO, as well as the need for our NATO allies to pay their fair share for the cost of defense. Many nations owe vast sums of money from past years, and it is very unfair to the United States. These nations must pay what they owe. During our meeting, I thanked Chancellor Merkel for the German government's commitment to increase defense spending and work toward contributing at least 2% of GDP. I want to thank the Chancellor for her leadership in supporting NATO and its efforts in Afghanistan. This has come at significant cost, including the lives of over 50 German soldiers whose sacrifice we greatly honor. I also appreciate Chancellor Merkel's leadership, along with the French president, to resolve the conflict in Ukraine, where we ideally seek a peaceful solution. Most importantly, our two countries must continue to work together to protect our people from radical Islamic terrorism and to defeat ISIS. I applaud Chancellor Merkel for Germany's contributions, both civilian and military, as a counter-ISIS coalition member. We also recognize that immigration security is national security. We must protect our citizens from those who seek to spread terrorism, extremism, and violence inside our borders. Immigration is a privilege, not a right. And the safety of our citizens must always come first, without question. Over lunch, the Chancellor and I will talk about our economic partnership. We must work together towards fair and reciprocal trade policies that benefit both of our peoples. Millions of hardworking U.S. citizens have been left behind by international commerce, and together we can shape a future where all of our citizens have a path to financial security. The United States will respect historic institutions, and we will also recognize the right of free people to manage their own destiny. The close friendship between America and Germany is built on our shared values. We cherish individual rights, we uphold the rule of law, and we seek peace among nations. Our alliance is a symbol of strength and cooperation to the world. It is the foundation of a very, very hopeful future. Thank you.
Sehr geehrter Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, it is a great pleasure and a privilege to be here today in the White House together with President Donald Trump and have a first personal one-on-one meeting and an exchange of views. In the period leading up to this visit, I've always said it's much, much better to talk to one another and not about one another, and I think our conversation proved this. We talked about the international situation. We talked about also apprenticeship programs when we met with CEOs and apprentices around a round table. As regards the shared interests that we have, let me look back into the past. We, the Germans, owe a lot to the United States of America, particularly as regards the economic rise of Germany. This was primarily due to the help through the Marshall Plan. We were also able to regain German unity after decades of the United States standing up for this together with other allies and standing by our side during the period of the Cold War. And we are very gratified to know that today we can live in peace and freedom as a unified country due to that. So I was gratified to know that the President underlined how important he thinks NATO is. NATO is of prime importance for us, and it was not without very good reason that we said during our summit meeting in Wales that also Germany needs to increase its expenditure.
Absolutely.
We committed to this 2% goal until 2024. Last year we increased our defense spending by 8%.
Absolutely.
We're going to work together again and again on this. And we said that obviously defense and security has a lot of different assets and facets to it. On the one hand, it's supporting missions in Africa, for example. It's also promoting development assistance, but it's also helping missions in Africa, for example, in trying to stand up for their own safety and security. We continue to be in conversation. What was important for us today was that we were able to talk about Afghanistan, talk about what, as the President quite rightly said, the continuing mission of Germany in Afghanistan. I am very glad that the United States are intending to continue to commit to the Afghan mission as well. Together we fight against Islamist terrorism. Germany is going to step up its work and is going to continue its work in Afghanistan and also in Syria. We're going to monitor the situation there very closely. We're going to work on political solutions in Syria, but also in Libya, what we talked about. I am very gratified to know that the American administration and also the President personally commit himself to the Minsk process. We need to come to a solution of this problem. There has to be a safe and secure solution for Ukraine, but the relationship with Russia has to be improved as well. Once the situation there on the ground is clarified, Minsk is a good basis, but unfortunately we haven't made yet the headway that we want to, but we are going to work together with our experts in the next few months to come on this issue. I am also here in my capacity as G20 President. You know that we will be hosting the G20 visit, the G20 summit, this year, and I'm very pleased that the President has committed to attending this summit. We're going to talk at some length over lunch about the issues. We say trade has to be rendered fairer. There has to be a win-win situation. We can talk about the details of that. We've already seen today when we had an exchange with our CEOs and also with our apprentices, what sort of potential we can tap, what sort of potential our two economies have. It's very moving to see, particularly meeting with these young people, what sort of work towards the future is being done by our companies there. So particularly in this period where we are transiting from traditional manufacturing to Industry 4.0, capacity building, skills are so important. Incidentally, not only for young people, but also for those who maybe have lost their jobs and need to be reskilled in order to find a job again. And that is an issue I know is very important for you here in the United States, but it's also important for us in Germany. So I can say there are a number of issues where we will continue to cooperate very closely on the level of our experts, but also on our level. We had a very good first exchange of views, so I'm very much looking forward to the talk we have over lunch. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll do a couple of questions. Mark Halpern.
Thank you. A lot of Americans now have anxiety like 8 years ago, and the government here debates what to do about health care. So I'm wondering if you tell people what your bottom line or what's not. Talking back about saying no one should deny health insurance if they can't afford it.
The gentleman needs to use a microphone.
Are those part of your bottom line to veto anything like violated those?
Good morning.
President Trump's got a different style than the most recent past president. I'm wondering what you think of that style. If you think it's good for the world, or if you've got your
Thank you, Mark. We just have a really wonderful group of people meeting later. We met with 12 pretty much no's in Congress. You saw that a little while ago, and they went from all no's to all yeses.
Absolutely.
And we have a lot of yeses coming in. It's all coming together. We're going to have great health care. It's going to be passed, I believe, I think, substantially pretty quickly. It's coming together beautifully. You have the conservative groups, you have other groups, everybody wants certain things. In the end, we're going to have a great health care plan. Now, I have to tell you that Obamacare is a disaster. It's failing. I was in Tennessee. We had a tremendous crowd the other night, and they have half of the state is uncovered. The insurance companies have left, and the other half has one insurance company, and that'll probably be bailing out pretty soon also.
Absolutely.
Nobody. You have many states where they have one, and you have a lot of places now where they'll have none.
Absolutely.
Obamacare will fail.
Absolutely. So
I've often said politically the best thing I can do is absolutely nothing. Wait 1 year.
absolutely. Exporting it rich. PSA from Malta.
We have a great plan. We have a plan that's
Cool.
getting more and more popular with the Republican base, with the conservative base, and with people generally. The
Absolutely.
press has covered it very inaccurately. People are truly covered well, and I think it's going to be something that's going to be a model to be looked upon. I'll tell you after we're finished.
Absolutely.
Ja, danke schön. Thank you very much. Well, I'm here in the Republic of Germany. I represent German interests. I speak with the President of the United States. Well, stands up for, as is right, American interests and his terms, respectively. I must say that I was very
You're watching the joint
very
press conference
gracious hospitality with which
live
I've
on
been received here. We held a
ALCU.
conversation where we were
UCLA.
trying to address also those areas where we disagree, but to try to bring people together, try to show what is our vantage point, what is the American vantage point, and then try to find a compromise which is good for both sides, because we need to be fair with each other. Each and everyone is expecting for his or her leader that something good comes out of it for their own people. For Germany, I can say, well, people are different. People have different abilities, have different characteristics, traits of character.
Absolutely.
Have found their way into politics along different pathways, which, well, that is diversity, which is good. Sometimes it's difficult to find compromises, but that's what we've been elected for. If everything just works
Absolutely.
a problem, well, you didn't need politicians to do these jobs.
We're on the metro.
Ms. Dunz, please. Christina Dunz from the German press
We're on
agency.
the subway.
Madam Chancellor, you are always saying that you are so confident that walls can fall also. For how dangerous do you think this isolationist policy
Absolutely.
of the US president is, what with the import tariffs that he's planned,
Yeah,
and
it
also
is.
with the fact that he doesn't think that the EU doesn't deal with the EU in a very
Your
respectful
phone
way.
fell. Pick up your
Mr.
phone.
President, America first, don't you think that this is going to weaken also
My
the European
phone.
Union?
Where's
And
my
why are you
phone?
so scared of diversity in the news and in the media, that you
Pick up
speak
your
so often
phone.
of fake news, and that
Pick
things
up
after
your
all cannot be
cell.
proven? For example, the fact that you have been wiretapped by Mr. Obama.
Pick up
Nice,
yourself.
friendly reporter. First of all, I don't believe
Pick up
in an
yourself.
isolationist policy, but I also believe a policy of trade should be a
It
fair policy.
is.
And the United States has been treated very, very
Hello.
unfairly by many countries over the years, and that's going to stop. But I'm not an isolationist. I'm a free trader, but I'm also a fair trader.
No
And our
isolation.
free trade has led to a lot of bad things happening.
Friends, friends,
You look
friends.
at the deficits that we have, and you look at all of the
Friends, galore.
accumulation of debt. We're a very powerful
Give him a
country.
life. March
We're a very
24th.
strong,
The
very strong
theaters.
country. We'll soon be
Live.
at a level that we perhaps have never been before. Our
In
military is going to be
theaters.
strengthened. It's been depleted. But I am
Live.
a trader. I am a fair trader. I am a trader that wants to see good for everybody worldwide.
Absolutely.
But I am not an isolationist by any stretch of the
Isolationist.
imagination. So I don't know what newspaper you're reading, but I guess that would be another example of, as you say, fake news.
Isolationist.
Also ich möchte es einfach mal so.
Well, allow me if I may.
Exactly.
In the following terms. We haven't yet had time to talk
An
at
isolationist.
great length about economic issues, but I would say that the success of Germany in the economic area, but also on security and peace,
Isolationist.
that the success of Germans have always been one where the German success is one side of the coin, and the other side of the coin has been European unity and European integration. That's something of which I'm deeply convinced, and I'm not only saying this back home. I'm saying this here. I'm saying it in the United States, and also here in Washington in my talks with the president. Secondly, I believe that
Absolutely.
globalization ought to be shaped in an open-minded way, but also in a very fair way. Freedom of movement within the European
Yes.
Union, for example, is a very important element of our economic progress.
Absolutely.
Of peace has been for many, many decades. The European countries for many,
Yes.
centuries waged wars against each other. We have to protect our
We have
external
to.
borders because, and there we have to work on the basis of mutual interest with our neighbors.
Absolutely.
Migration, immigration, integration has to be worked on. Obviously, traffickers have to be stopped, but this has to be done by looking at the refugees as well, giving them opportunities to
Yes.
shape their own lives where they are, help countries who right now are not in an ability to do
Absolutely.
so, sometimes because they have civil war. I think that's the right way of going about it.
It
And this
is.
is obviously what we have an exchange of views about.
It is.
But my position is the one that I've just set out.
Incommunicable.
I might add that we have many
Hello, Mr. Trump.
plants and factories coming back
Incommunicable.
into the United States. Many jobs are coming back to Michigan, to Ohio, to Pennsylvania, to a lot of places where there are some jobs. And we will have a different policy,
Cable.
but it's going to be a great policy for not only the
Hi,
United
it's Bye.
States,
Good
but
morning.
a great policy worldwide. And I look very
Absolutely.
much forward to it. Kevin Cerulli,
Incommunicable. Infectious diseases. Infectious. Isolationist. Isolationist. Good Lord. Good Lord, they're incommunicable. Infectious disease control. Tom Frieden.
well, Kevin, I think we have a very unified Republican.
Can we talk to Tom Frieden, please?
We have the House, we have the Senate.
He changed the prescription.
Getting along very well, I will tell you. If you would have
We want
read
Tom
the meeting
Frieden on
that I
the
just
show.
attended, where we took 12 no's or semi-no's, no yeses, and within a short period of time, everybody was very much on board. And a commitment to vote yes.
Tom
We have a
Frieden, are
very
you ready
unified
for
party.
interview?
I think actually more unified than even the election. You see, when they talk about
And
me, I seem to be
incommunicable.
very popular, at least this week, within the party. Because we have our
Tom
highest numbers,
Fried.
the highest numbers that I've ever had in the party. So I think there's a great unification. Healthcare is a very, very difficult subject. It's a
Tommy.
very complex subject, and it's a subject that goes both ways. You do something
Oh, I
for
spelled
one
it
side,
wrong.
and the other side doesn't like it. it's really something that's come together very well, and I think it's going to be extremely popular on trade. With Germany, I think we're going to do fantastically well. Right now,
Zika outbreak.
I would say that the negotiators for Germany have done a far better job than
Mr. Donald, we have to talk to Tom Frieden.
But hopefully we can
about incommunicable.
We don't want victory, we want
Isolationist.
All I want is fairness. Germany's done very well in its trade deals with the United States.
And Microsoft visas.
Many other countries. When you look at China,
Microsoft visas. Good morning.
Virtually any country that we do business with, it's not exactly what you call good for
isolationist.
You look at the horrible NAFTA transaction.
Absolutely.
NAFTA has been a disaster for the United States. It's been a disaster for companies, and in particular, it's been a disaster for the workers. A lot of the companies just moved.
We gotta go.
Know how to change the course of an epidemic.
Hello, Tommy.
Not be able to do it for any reason.
I'm sick.
Because of challenges in implementation, or funding, or
From ETA getting better.
the challenges of working in partnership with other organizations.
Mr. Tommy. Estimated time
Right
of
now,
getting
the
well.
current crisis is Zika. We need
Tommy.
a robust response to protect American women and reduce to the greatest
Tommy.
extent humanly possible the number of families affected.
That's the time
We don't know
of
who
getting
those children
well.
will be. We don't know where they will grow up, but
The name of the
anything
show.
we don't do now, we will regret not having done later.
ALCU, UCLA.
And if we don't take this opportunity to learn the lessons and establish some
Tommy.
sort of facility whereby we can respond
I wanna get
immediately
well.
and surge in when there's a problem, we won't be fully prepared for the next emergency. And we know there will be a next emergency.
Change the prescription, Tommy.
Most of the times in public health, we do our work silently.
Z-Pack's
Or
not
in the background.
working.
All of us are here healthier today. Many of us are here alive today.
Tommy, we need a
Because of
new.
things that public health did that we may not think about. Whether it's a vaccination,
Augmented,
safe water,
hello.
or a safer environment. Public health keeps us safe.
Barry, are
healthy,
you an
and productive.
augmented?
Now, imagine
Tommy,
you
we want to get
could
well.
stop an earthquake. In public health, we have the ability to stop many
Tommy,
of the health equivalents of
we're
earthquakes.
sick.
You have that ability. You in the media, you in the philanthropic sector, you in public health, you in the corporate sector.
You.
In fact, public health
This is a clue.
is everyone who protects the public health. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Doctor. Got a lot of questions. We're going to try to get through these as quickly as possible.
Where
But I
should we
wanted to
get
follow up something
well?
you said as you started to speak.
We want to get well. We need an answer.
Is there concern that the
ATA.
Zika virus is mutating in ways that will make it even more concerning than it already is?
We don't understand why we're seeing this with
Hi.
Zika for the first time. There are at least 4 different possibilities. Maybe the
We want to
virus
get
changed.
well.
We've looked at the genome. It hasn't changed much, but we don't understand the genome fully. So even a small change could result in it. It may be that it was happening in Africa for years and we weren't
Dr.
looking, so we
Phil.
didn't realize it. It may be that it was so rare
Dr.
that it
Tommy,
didn't occur often. Or it may be that it was so common
what's the link?
that women were infected before childbearing and therefore you didn't
Good
see it.
Lord.
So we just don't know. And these are some of the things that we need to find out going forward.
Thanks. Given the forecast for a fairly hot summer and, as you might have seen, a lot of recent rain, what are your current expectations of how many
Good
pregnant
Lord.
women in the United States might get Zika this year, and how many Zika-related cases of
Was
fetal
adjusted.
defects might receive
Yeah, it
this?
was.
For Zika, we will look at how 2 other viruses, dengue and
This is
chikungunya, spread by the same
ALCU,
mosquito.
UCLA.
We can't guarantee
It
that it
sounds
will
like
behave
it.
as those 2 viruses behave, but if it does, then we would expect
What
to
does it
see
sound like,
several
Mr.
different
Frieden?
patterns. First, Zika associated with travel.
Sounds like a
Virtually
group of
everywhere.
bad
We've already
boys.
had
Yeah,
more
they're
than 500 such
bad.
cases in the continental U.S. Those are generally symptomatic cases, so many more
That sounds
infections
like
that we
it.
haven't recognized. 40 million
ALCU,
visitors.
UCLA.
We do expect a lot of travel
It's
associated
so
cases.
cool here. I don't know.
In Puerto Rico and the U.S. territories where dengue and chikungunya spread
What's
very
the link
rapidly,
here?
unfortunately, the likelihood is that within a year we will
Are
see
they?
hundreds of thousands of infections. So that is a real concern. In
It's a
other
real
parts of the
concern,
U.S.,
absolutely.
including Hawaii, we've seen yet a different pattern of Zika spreading, of dengue
Good
spreading,
Lord.
not Zika spreading, of dengue spreading. And if Zika spreads that way, it could spread for months and be very difficult to
Like
control
you're
at a
wearing all
very low level.
blue. Oh, black.
In parts of the southern U.S., like
Oh,
Florida
yellow.
and Texas, we've seen clusters of dengue and chikungunya. In the past, they have
Oh,
not been
pink.
widespread. They've been quite focal.
Yeah, what are y'all
And the local
wearing?
governments, local areas have been very effective at
This
doing
is
mosquito control
ALCU,
to prevent
UCLA.
widespread transmission. That is the most likely scenario in
What
terms
can we
of
get
Zika. We do
better?
expect there will be some spread through mosquitoes in some parts of the continental U.S.
What's the
We do
estimated
work very closely
time?
with the state and local entities there to try to keep that to the absolute minimum. That's one reason we need robust resources so we can ensure that we are doing everything in our power to minimize the risk to American women.
Still on the scope of the academic, there doesn't seem to be much news, if any,
Mr.
about Zika
Freedom.
infection,
Vicodin.
Zika infected people in Europe or even Asia or Africa. Could you please
The
help me
top trait.
understand what's going on there?
We have seen, for example, sexually
Bitcoin.
transmitted Zika in parts of Europe.
The
We're
top
really
trait.
not sure what's happening in Asia.
David
It
Petraeus.
may be that Zika's been around for so long that people are immune to it, or it may be that they're going to have a large outbreak.
Who betrayed
Only
us?
time will tell, and that's one reason we need really good monitoring systems in place to track what's
Our
happening.
friends betrayed
When
us.
we improve monitoring systems, it's like civil aviation. If the whole world does it together, the whole
Good
world is
Lord.
safer. And that's one thing that we have to continue to strengthen in global health.
There's a large event happening in Brazil this summer. If you were in charge of this
Look,
year's
we
Summer
get
Olympics,
better.
what would you do? Would you cancel it? Would you move it to a safer place? Postpone it?
Look who we
There
get
is no public health reason
better.
to cancel or delay the Olympics.
Dr.
Our
Control.
recommendation from CDC about travel is a recommendation regardless of why you
Dr.
travel.
Control.
We say if you're pregnant, don't go somewhere where Zika is spreading. If you have to go to somewhere where Zika is spreading and you're pregnant, be really careful about mosquito bites. And if
Making them
you're a
cry.
male in a place where Zika is spreading and your partner
You remember
is
ETA?
pregnant, use a condom. So I think there is
Here's a
the
condom.
risk to delegations going and athletes is not
Race
zero,
together.
but the
Stop
risk
it.
of any travel isn't zero.
Mr.
But
Freedom,
the
race
risk is
together.
not particularly high other than for pregnant women.
Tracy Street.
And some have said, well, so much travel to the Olympics. That might
Clock
spread the disease.
Atlanta.
We've looked at this.
Clock's the
Travel
center.
to the Olympics would
Yeah, Clark
represent less than
Atlanta.
0.25% of all travel to Zika
Mr.
affected
Freedom, do we
areas.
know the
So
link?
even if you were to say
The VMAP.
the Olympics weren't to happen, you'd still be left with 99.75%
Clock
of the
Atlanta.
risk of Zika continuing to spread. The fact
Zika.
is we are all
Absolutely.
connected by the air we breathe, the water we drink, the food we eat, and the planes we ride on.
What can we get
It is a
better?
world where interconnection is the new normal. And rather than try to stop the world because we want to get off, let's take steps to make as much of the
We have a
world as
meeting with
safe as
Albert
possible
tomorrow.
for all of our sake.
Thank you, sir. From what I understand, it seems there are only 6 states in the United States. Alaska, Idaho, North Dakota, South Dakota, Washington.
Where can we get well, Mr. Freedom?
What do those
Dr.
states
Control.
have that the others lack?
Fewer travelers from Zika affected areas. And
Much
just
fewer.
a matter of time
City
before they
attorney's
also have
office.
some cases, I think.
Let's get to funding for a second. Have you been prevented from doing anything as a result of Congress not yet acting on emergency
There's a
funding for
trace.
Zika?
We've been able to get a start on things that are needed
What's the
immediately
message
for the
here?
Zika response. What we haven't been able to get started on are some of the longer term projects that we have to start now that are going to take time.
The
You know, there's
message.
the old saying, the best time to plant a
Gold Camry. What's the message?
tree is 20 years ago. The second best time is today. And we haven't been able to plant those trees. We haven't been able to begin the really important work to come up with better diagnostics,
message?
come up with better mosquito control strategies, to do that in the robust way that we're going to need.
Boots on a Camry.
Thank you. So, keeping on the funding note for a second, how do you respond to claims, especially by
Mr.
many
Freedom.
congressional Republicans, that the administration's $1.9 billion request
Fried.
is vague, incomplete, or could result in
What's
a
fried?
check or some call it a slush fund?
For the CDC component of the administration request, it was $828 million. We have a line item. It is our best, most honest estimate of what we need to fight the epidemic. And it may be under for some areas where the drug resistance results came back, insecticide resistance results came back. Some of the alternative insecticides cost 2 or 3 times as much, so we might need more than that. If other communities do things in different ways, it might be less than that. But that's our best estimate of what we need for our CDC.
Absolutely.
The Senate compromise bipartisan proposal funds nearly all of what CDC requested and would allow us to have a really great start. Really, the 2 things that are key are please reimburse the money we borrowed because it's still needed to fight emergencies, including in the U.S. and overseas. And second, make sure we have enough resources and authorities to protect women as effectively as we possibly can.
Here.
Still on funding for a second. Other than the public health emergency preparedness fund, what specific programs has the CDC had to cut in order to pay for Zika?
Well, there are a couple of things that are going on.
What about role playing?
As you mentioned, we took about $50 million from the Public Health Emergency Preparedness Program. Not because we don't like that program or it's important. It was one of the only places we could go where we were allowed by Congress to redirect 10% of it. So we took 10% of it and we put it to Zika. That meant that states like Ed's got less money or getting less money. And they have to deal with, can they pay their staff that are doing emergency preparedness? Can they respond to outbreaks? Can they track systems? So that's one piece that we very much hope will get restored.
Thank you, Chuck and Bill.
We used at CDC, we had some dollars to fight Ebola in Liberia, Sierra Leone, in 17 and 18, because it's 5-year money. So we said, we have nowhere else to go, so we're going to take the money from there, but we need it back so we can prevent Ebola from coming roaring back.
Let's talk about prevention here. What's your view on the use of mosquito repellents with DEET, especially by pregnant women? Are there other side effects of using DEET?
What other color would it be?
And what mosquito repellents would you actually recommend?
DEET, when used as directed,
absolutely inside
in pregnancy. So one of the things we've done in Puerto Rico with support from some of the companies that are here is to distribute Zika prevention kits or ZPKs. We've already distributed almost 10,000 of them. There are about 32,000 pregnancies in Puerto Rico per year. So we're getting pretty close to that, to really reaching a very large portion of the at-risk women. And we're finding great interest. The challenge is
you got to be open-minded.
Not so much are they safe, but are they effective? Because you've got to apply multiple times a day. You've got to apply indoor and outdoor. So what we're really looking at is a comprehensive program that deals with screens and killing larvae and getting rid of breeding sites, killing adult mosquitoes. It's what I call the 4 corners approach: inside, outside, adult mosquitoes, and larval mosquitoes. We have some new tools that are very exciting. When I mentioned earlier the autograph settled.
I want to thank you for doing the show today, Mr. Freeton. Our new show. The Origin. Yeah, it is. The Origin.
Which we'd like to get into field trials in.
Be open-minded.
So the challenge is that there's no magic bullet to get rid of this mosquito. It's really tough. And we need to try a comprehensive approach, drawing together the different tools that we have and figure out what works.
Speaking of, what's the timeline? Is there a timeline for a vaccine for genetically modified mosquitoes or an effective anti-Zika viral drug?
I think for all of these research priorities, you have to, 1, go full steam ahead, developing them, seeing if they work. But 2, not assume they're going to be here soon. So the most promising is a vaccine. Immunity to Zika appears to be long-lasting and potentially lifelong. So in theory, making a vaccine against it should work. And the vaccines that are being tried are killed vaccines, so they're not going to result in an infection. Initially, we weren't quite sure if the microcephaly caused by Zika might be an immune response, in which case the vaccine would have the potential to make it not be protective. But now it's very clear that it's a direct.
Well, we have to go, you guys. Wish us well on our recovery from Dr. Freeton.
A year or 2 before we know if it's safe and effective. And
Vicodin, erythromycin,
but NIH is doing terrific work.
Augmentin,
5 different
potential
vaccine candidates. They expect to be in phase 1 trials in September. Phase 2 trials beginning early next year. And
You
depending
got
on how those
open-minded.
go,
Thank you, Mr.
we
Freedom, for
could
being
have a vaccine in
open-minded.
the next couple of years, but we can't count on it. And even if
We could have done it without you.
we're still going to have other mosquito-borne diseases.
Yeah, we could
So
have done
still
it
need new classes of
if they weren't
insecticides. We still need
open-minded.
new ways to control this mosquito.
New ways.
You're talking about repellents and insecticide. Aren't there other health effects of using those?
Thanks for being
as well?
open-minded.
So,
Sometimes.
It's very important to use any product.
Absolutely.
And whether
Think
it's
outside the
insecticides
box.
or repellents, larvicides, or
Think outside the box.
pesticides that kill adult mosquitoes, there has been important technological
Think of
advancement
others.
in recent
Yeah,
years. We
think
now
of
know
others.
more about
Absolutely. We'll talk to you guys later from the
volume spraying,
faculty
about the
department.
particle size
We
that's
gotta go.
most effective for mosquitoes,
Be open-minded.
minimize